Thank you for watching. We are jumping right into the action here. We are in the essential swing state of Nevada. This is the Las Vegas rally. I'm going to go bigger on here. We have Senator Jackie Rosen. So let's listen in to see what she has to say.
I know I can count on all of you. So can Vice President Harris. And why can we count on you? Because there is a stark choice for Nevada voters this November. There's a choice between a convicted criminal who's only out for himself. Don't boo, vote.
I gotta say right off the bat, Democrats are getting so good at harnessing energy. Wild.
Well, I want to tell you some more about the choices, though, because there's a choice. Not just a convicted felon, but there's a choice because Vice President Harris is a former prosecutor and attorney general who stands up for the rule of law and takes on bad actors. And there's a choice between extreme MAGA Republicans who want to repeal the Affordable Care Act, take away protections for pre-existing conditions, or the Democrats who want to deliver lower health care, lower prescription drug prices. It matters. Health care matters. And there's a stark choice. A choice between tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy and giant corporations who are ripping us off, or real tax cuts for lower costs for working families.
For those just joining, this is Senator Jackie Rosen. She's the senator from Nevada, the U.S. senator.
A threat of a nationwide abortion ban, or the promise of restoring Roe and protecting reproductive freedom for all.
And here's why that's so important. Nevada is one of the most pro-choice states in the entire country. So her hitting on that point last is a testament to that.
It's a choice between violence, between division and chaos like we saw on January 6th. I was there, trust me. They were no tourists. Or a president like Vice President Harris who knows that no one is above the law. No one is above our democracy, no one. And that our country is at its best when we stand united. So let's be clear. We have some big challenges ahead of us. The contrast couldn't be bigger and the stakes couldn't be higher. Cost of living is still too high, giant corporations driving up those costs every day. It's why we're taking on special interests, working to lower the cost of housing, of gas, of groceries, of everyday essentials. I know culinary unions here. I was a member of 226 when I was a little bit younger. But we got a lot of unions here in Nevada, and we're pushing for the PRO Act to help Nevada workers join a union, organize in their workplace, and earn a living wage. We're going to push for tax relief for tipped workers, tax cuts for the middle class, and we're going to expand the child tax credit. The child tax credit. We're going to keep pushing back against those extreme Republicans like my opponent, Sam Brown. He's not from Nevada, you know. But he wants to put your Social Security and your Medicare on the chopping block, let's be sure. And we're going to stand up to all the extremists in Washington who overturned Roe v. Wade, and the MAGA candidates like Sam Brown, who we know would vote to pass a nationwide abortion ban if they have the chance. We won't let them. We won't go back. We sure don't want them to come after our IVF or our birth control either. Not going back to that. So I'm going to finish up here in a minute. But our priorities, we stand in clear contrast with Donald Trump, with his VP pick, J.D. Vance, and my extreme MAGA opponent, Sam Brown. These guys are far right, out of touch, and they do not understand Nevada. They do not understand Nevada. Elections are about choices, my friends. The choice is very clear. I always put Nevada first. This is my home. It's been my home for 50 years. Sam Brown will always put MAGA first. I'll fight for personal freedoms. My opponent has a decades-long record of wanting to take those freedoms away. And that's the choice we make this November. And this election will also have the choice to directly defend reproductive freedom in Nevada because our rights are literally on the ballot. Don't boo, vote. So, please vote yes on the Reproductive Rights Amendment to permanently give Nevadans the right to reproductive health care.
So smart that that's on the ballot, because even people who are relatively apolitical are going to see that question on the ballot to codify abortion rights in the state, and that is going to drive people out to the polls to not only vote for that, but also the lawmakers and the senators and the presidential candidates who actually support that position too.
Majority to elect Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to the White House. So, I see a lot of you out here who volunteer, but I know we could always use a few more. So you can go ahead and visit rosenfornevada.com or take out your phone and text Jackie, J-A-C-K-Y, to 30508. You can get involved. You can be sure everyone you know votes, and we can show everybody how Nevada does it. We've got 87 days to go. So what are we going to do? We're going to mobilize. What are we going to do? We're going to organize. And what are we going to do? We're going to vote. Because when we vote, we win. Thank you.
I got to say, Democrats, for the first time that I can remember, are actually getting really good at messaging and are learning from the virtues of the Trump administration, shockingly enough, where they have these short, effective, potent, strong messages. Look, we spent years listening to Build the Wall, Make America Great Again, Lock Her Up. Now we've got When We Vote, We Win. We've got We're Not Going Back. Just as strong, and a stark contrast to the tired nature of what the Trump campaign is selling, which is just the same boring message for the last near decade. This is the other U.S. Senator, Cortez Masto.
This over and over again, but really, are we ready to welcome the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris? And are we ready to welcome our next vice president, Tim Walz? So am I. Think about this. You know, when my grandfather crossed the Rio Grande to come to this country for a better life for his family, he had no idea that only 2 generations later, his granddaughter would be the first Latina ever elected to the United States. Si se puede. You know, that is the American dream, right? That's what Nevada families want for their children. And let me tell you, Kamala Harris, she understands that dream. And this is how I know. Vice President Harris and I met serving as attorneys general together. And I quickly learned what kind of person she is. As attorneys general, Kamala and I took on the big banks during the 2000 mortgage crisis, right? And I will tell you, after many phone calls and meetings with her leadership, we won $25 billion in retribution for working families across this country. So I know showing up for all Americans, that's Kamala Harris. That is absolutely Kamala Harris. And when Kamala led a group of attorneys general across the border to meet with our Mexican counterparts to address transnational crime, she made sure we also met with victims of human trafficking and sexual violence so that we could better understand what we were fighting for. Standing up for justice, that's Kamala Harris. And together, we started an information sharing program with Mexico that helped us prosecute transnational criminals, drug smugglers, and human traffickers at our southern border. Holding criminals accountable, that's Kamala Harris. So Las Vegas and Nevada, believe me when I say, Kamala Harris is a fighter for our working families, for good-paying jobs, and for our freedoms. As Vice President, Kamala Harris took historic action to invest in American technology, to upgrade our infrastructure and create thousands of clean energy jobs. And by the way, we're a proud union state here in Nevada, so those are good-paying union jobs. Those are good-paying union jobs, and Kamala Harris knows this because she also knows what our culinary knows, that one job should be enough. Should be enough. All right? Kamala Harris also knows that our families shouldn't have to choose between paying for their medication and putting food on the table. Right? That's why she worked to cap the cost of insulin at $35 per month. And it's why the Biden-Harris administration is forcing Big Pharma to negotiate lower prescription drug costs. Right? This is it. I don't have to tell you. Listen, we have made so much progress, but we're not done. We're not done. We know there's more work to be done. And as president, Kamala Harris will keep us moving forward toward a future where every American has every opportunity. A future where politicians aren't telling us what to do with our bodies. A future where we choose freedom. But you want to know who takes us backward? Donald Trump. And listen, how do we know this? Well, just read his party's, the right-wing MAGA manifesto, this Project 2025. Just read it. He wants to raise taxes on the middle class and give big tax breaks to his wealthy friends. He wants to line Big Pharma's pockets instead of reducing prescription drug costs for Americans across this country. He wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Donald Trump's solutions, listen, he has no solutions, and that's his problem. And I'm here to tell you, as somebody who fought for this piece of legislation, he doesn't even want a solution to address what's happening at the southern border, because he tanked the strongest bipartisan border security bill we have ever had. He did it intentionally. He'd rather have this chaos. And you know what else? Donald Trump and J.D. Vance think women shouldn't have control over their own bodies. Now, here in Nevada, we are a proud pro-choice state. But I'm here to tell you, and you all know this, there are politicians like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance who just don't care. They just don't care. And I'll tell you what, he may be lying about it now, but we know that Donald Trump would sign a national abortion ban into law if he got the chance. And we just cannot give him that chance.
Remember, this is a guy who, even after seeing Republicans lose elections in Alabama, Ohio, Kentucky, Kansas, Virginia, still brags about the fact that he appointed a third of the Supreme Court that would overturn Roe. So imagine what he was doing if he was unconstrained by an upcoming election.
We need to win the majority in the House. We need to keep our majority in the Senate. And yes, we must win the White House. So listen, you saw them here today. We have to send Susie Lee, Dina Titus, Stephen Horsford back to the House, right? And we have to send my partner, Jackie Rosen, back to the Senate.
Notice how they've done a lot of these campaigns in battlegrounds where even the Senate candidates in rough races and tough races are up for re-election. In Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin. In Arizona, Ruben Gallego. In Nevada here, Jackie Rosen. Smart of the campaign to do that.
I'm going to leave you with one last thing. Last election, the Senate majority came down to 7,928 Nevada voters. With that number, we held the Senate, thanks to all of you. That's less than a 1% margin. But I am here to tell you, and you know this, it's a reminder that every vote counts. Every vote counts. So Nevada, are we going to make our votes count? Nevada, are we going to choose the prosecutor over the convicted felon? Nevada, are we going to deliver our state for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And as my good friend Kamala Harris says, when we fight, all right, Nevada, thank you so much.
Again, so smart of them to use these opportunities where there are so many people. This is a 19,000 person capacity arena. It is nearly full. At last time I checked, I saw some seats that were maybe not filled on the topmost rows, but that was a little while ago. So obviously Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have yet to speak, so I'm sure that the seats are continuing to fill up thus far. But there could be as many as 20,000 people in this arena right here, including the people who are standing on the floor. So for them to use this opportunity, not just to promote Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the top of the ticket, but in every single opportunity, introduce these people, if they don't already know them, to folks at the bottom of the ticket, folks running for U.S. Senate or the House or even local races, and just kind of recognizing the importance of building the party up from the ground up. And we're seeing that right now. Again, as I mentioned before, the Michigan rally featured Alyssa Slotkin. The Arizona rally featured Ruben Gallego. Now we're here in Nevada, in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Jackie Rosen is the U.S. Senator in a tough race for her seat there. So Democrats have a really tough map where we're defending seats in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, Montana. And so using these opportunities where they're garnering so much support and bringing so many people out to not just highlight those at the top of the ticket, but those below them who are going to be so important in making sure that we keep our Senate majority and gaining a House majority is crucial here. And the Harris campaign has been second to none in kind of getting the biggest bang for their buck in terms of hosting these rallies. And it's showing in the results. Look, Democrats right now are gaining more than double the amount of money that the Trump campaign is gaining. They're opening up. The amount of field offices Democrats are opening relative to the Trump campaign is exponential. I'm going to read some numbers here that I have stored away. This was as of a couple weeks ago, so these numbers may have changed, but as of a few weeks ago, no, you know what, I believe it was maybe a week or two ago. In Nevada, where we are right here, Kamala Harris has 13 campaign offices, Donald Trump has 1. In Pennsylvania, Harris has 36 campaign offices. Donald Trump has 3. In Georgia, Harris has 24 offices. Donald Trump didn't open his first one until this June, so just a few weeks back. So that is what they're doing. That is what they're doing with their with the donations, and I guess just contrast that to what the Trump team is doing with those donations, which largely depend on paying folks like Alina Habba, who then goes on to Instagram with her fancy handbags after using all of that money to lose a bunch of cases for Donald Trump in court. That's all that the Trump campaign really is at this point. If you are spending money on the Trump campaign, that is a donor to lawyer pipeline, and none of it is going toward anything that can actually help Trump's campaign, which is so bizarre because one would think that putting someone like Lara Trump, with all of her extensive experience in running campaigns, at the top of the RNC would have had better results, and yet here we are. Shockingly, Lara Trump, with her burgeoning music career, isn't running the RNC to the degree that one might have hoped she would run it. But look, this is one of those instances where I am going to be the last person to condemn nepotism in the Republican Party, because if Donald Trump wants to put his daughter-in-law or his kids in charge of anything, hell, get Barron Trump in there. Have him run the entire get out the vote outreach portion of Donald Trump's campaign. I am totally fine with it. Let nepotism fly, as far as I'm concerned. We are just a few minutes away for those joining right now. We've far surpassed 40,000 live viewers at this point. This arena where they're in Las Vegas holds 19,000 plus another 1,000 on the floor. As far as I've seen, it is pretty damn close to full, which means in the aftermath of a huge rally in where were we last night? In Arizona last night, where I believe they had somewhere in the ballpark of 15, 16, 17, 18,000 to 20,000 people in that arena. Now we've got roughly the same number here in Nevada. And it's smart because they are just hitting swing state after swing state. All the while, where has Donald Trump been? In all of this time that we've seen Kamala Harris and Tim Walz hold rallies in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, and in Nevada, Donald Trump has held all of one rally, and that is in Montana, the ever so important swing state of Montana. I say that half tongue-in-cheek. It is important that we defend our Senate seat in that state, and of course we have one seat to defend there. So I'm certain that they will do something to make sure that we can defend John Tester's seat up in Montana. But in the meantime, the difference in terms of what this campaign is doing in state after state that is absolutely necessary, crucial to win this election, cannot be overstated here. And remember, this comes in the immediate aftermath of some polling that we just saw today from the New York Times, where Kamala Harris is now leading Donald Trump in 3 separate swing states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Why is that important? She's leading Trump, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin all by the exact same margin, and that margin is 46-50. That is important because if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they win the presidential election. Those are the states you need to win the presidential election. And so recognizing that we have leads in all of those states is a really good signal, especially, 86 days out here, that we're on a good path, that the momentum is clearly only going in one direction, and most importantly, not to get complacent, because we've seen that Donald Trump can win elections that we thought he had no chance of winning. He'd done it in 2016. We're still reeling from the effects of that. And so we don't want to be in a position where we kind of let our foot off the gas. So I think what we should let these do is not render us complacent, but rather kind of inspire us to know that we not only have a chance of winning, but we are headed toward victory, if only that we can keep our foot on the gas here, keep working as hard as possible. And for everybody watching right now, look, Jackie Rosen just spoke about how the difference between the Senate majority for the Democrats and the Republicans was not even 8,000 votes. There are almost 50,000 people of you 50,000 people watching this right now. If every person found one extra person who wouldn't have voted in this election, make yourself responsible for that person. That is 7 times the margin that Democrats won the Senate by in the last election cycle. And granted, not everybody watching right now is going to be in swing states, but if you live in Georgia, if you live in North Carolina, if you live in Florida, or even Texas, if you live in Nevada or Arizona, Montana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and I believe that's it for like the swing states here, then you can absolutely have an impact in this election. And so recognize your agency here, make sure that you make yourself responsible for one person who wouldn't have otherwise voted, and that can be the difference between, not only the foul play that we're going to see Trump inevitably engage in, and that he's already signaled that he's going to engage in states like Georgia by giving a wink and a nod to the state elections board, who's already professed themselves as election deniers on behalf of Donald Trump. But it'll make sure that we win in margins that are just too big to repudiate, in margins that are too big to deny as far as Trump is concerned. Look, if the difference in this election is like the state of Wisconsin, and otherwise we're at roughly a tie vote when it comes to the Electoral College, that's one thing, and you know that he's going to double down and do everything he can to use whatever levers of power he can to steal the election. But if Democrats are winning in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and it becomes too overwhelmingly obvious that he's lost this election, then there won't be as big a worry as if the whole thing hinges on some Republican-led legislature in a state somewhere that is absolutely going to try to meddle on his behalf. So that's the role that we all can play here. Just a quick note, if anybody lives in D.C., I'm going to be live with Jen Psaki in Washington, D.C. on August 14th. I've pinned the link to that show in the comments section right now. So if you live in D.C., if you want to see me and Jen Psaki talk about all of the craziness that's happening in politics right now, definitely grab tickets. There are not many left, and I've pinned the comments at the top of this comment section here. And yes, by the way, I see a comment that says, we've got Mark Elias. Hell yeah, we have Mark Elias. Mark Elias, who Republicans once offered $500 million to come over to their side because he is just that effective. Imagine being so good, so effective, that somebody offers you $500 million with a B dollars just to stop doing what you're doing for the side that you're doing it for. So, of course, Mark has made it abundantly clear that he will never stop doing what he does for Democrats and fighting for democracy. But that is good news on our side. And already we've seen 3 court cases be brought forward by the Trump campaign. 2 of them, they've lost, so that's good news. And the third one we are pending a resolution on right now, and of course they're going to lose that one as well. And remember, that harkens back to the 65 court cases that Republicans brought in the 2020 election. They lost 64 of them. The only one they won was a case in Pennsylvania shortening a cure deadline from 9 to 6 days, I believe. So not exactly a monumental victory for Republicans. By the way, a fun little game that I like to play here is, let's do a poll while we're waiting. And this is something that I've had really good success with. So I want to know, and I only want those who live in places where there's a lot of Trump signage before. So if you live in Los Angeles, if you live in New York or DC, I don't want you to answer this poll. I'm talking to the people out there who live in, places where you drive down the street in 2016, maybe even 2020, and you are inundated with Trump signage. It feels like Donald Trump himself threw up all over your neighborhood. And I want to know if you're seeing more or less Trump signs in your neighborhood. Again, if you live in DC, if you live in New York, if you live in LA, don't answer this question.
Let's go.
So I threw that poll in the chat there. So I want to know, again, for the folks who live in Trump country, whether you're seeing more or less Trump signs. And this has been really telling. And look, obviously take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not out here saying like, oh, we're seeing boats with Donald Trump's name on it. That means Trump's going to win the next election. Everything is anecdotal data. But it is interesting because I always get responses from across the country, places you wouldn't ever know, we would never think were dropping support for Donald Trump. And look, I've already got responses in the chat right now. People from Iowa, Ohio, Texas, upstate New York, Nevada, Colorado Springs, Michigan, rural Michigan, North Carolina, South Carolina, another North Carolina, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Georgia. I'm getting people from all across the country. Kentucky. And right now, the results are pretty in line with what I've seen for the last couple days that I've been asking this question. We are at 90% of you who voted right now who are seeing less Trump signs than before. Just an interesting little tidbit. We've already got 5,000 votes in this poll. So 5,000 of you live in places that are otherwise inundated with Trump signage. And and you're seeing fewer and fewer. So again, don't take anything from that. Certainly don't get complacent from that. But it is kind of an interesting bit of anecdotal data that we are seeing 9 out of 10 people say that they're seeing fewer Trump signs in their neck of the woods than they'd seen before. And I think what's good too, and look, I appreciate everybody tuning in to watch this stuff. I can tell you from my own piece of anecdotal data that after hosting Biden rallies, after hosting Trump rallies on this channel, live streaming all of this stuff, the biggest numbers that I've ever seen for any rally, and this is including the heyday of the Trump administration, the Trump campaign rather, we are seeing bigger numbers right now for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz than I ever saw for Donald Trump. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to win the election or somebody's going to lose the election. It's all anecdotal data, but it is really telling that in an election cycle where so many people, look, it's 2024, everybody's political opinions, we have such high polarization, everybody's opinions are pretty much calcified where they are. There's only a few people in the middle whose votes are still up for grabs. Even in an environment like this, to see so many people enter the political process and pay attention is a bit of energy that I haven't seen since I've been doing this on YouTube. I have not seen this energy for either side, not seen this enthusiasm for either side. And so that's a little bit of good news from my end. Of course, we have good news from folks who are answering this poll right now. We have almost 7,000 votes right now. 90%, again, are seeing fewer Trump signs than they did before. So just interesting little bits of info here that we can use for what we'll use it for. But yes, I'm seeing enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm, and that's exactly right. So we are about, I believe, 5 to 10 minutes away from Tim Walz and Kamala Harris jumping on stage. I think what was very telling yesterday was the speech changed a little bit. And so here's what I found that was so interesting. A lot of people recognize that they're saying the same thing over and over. This is a stump speech. Usually, I mean, for all of eternity, stump speeches were identical, but we didn't have such obvious access to the internet, and so to obvious access to what's happening in state after state after state, at rally after rally after rally, and so there was really no downside to just using the same speech over and over again. Now, because so many people are watching online, I mean, we have as many as 20,000 people in the auditorium here, but we have almost more than double that right here in this live stream, and there's plenty of people who are live streaming this. So the fact that so many more people are watching online, I think, gave a little bit of some necessity here to see some changes in the stump speech. And so we saw roughly the same speech maybe in Philadelphia, then Michigan, and then Wisconsin, and then interestingly in Arizona it changed up. And I think it's a testament to how much they recognize that people are watching all over the country, all over the world right now, that there was even a need to change up the stump speech, because usually you can just go in verbatim and say the exact same thing in city after city after city and it wouldn't have made a difference. But there is so much attention on these people There's so much enthusiasm and energy that they even recognize that it might actually be worth it to change it up so that you keep the entire online audience, the millions of people who are watching online, in addition to those tens of thousands who are in those arenas right there, to keep everybody interested. And so now we're actually seeing stump speeches get changed up a little bit. And again, that's a testament to how much like organic earned media that they have on them right now, how much earned media, how much organic engagement they're garnering just by virtue of people being so invigorated by the campaign that we're seeing. There are the usual, phrases and whatnot, and I think that's important too, because here's what I've said before, and I'll maintain this to the ends of the earth. Democrats need to learn, and they are, to embrace repetition and simple, potent, strong messages. For years, we listened to Donald Trump and all of these Trump mouthpieces and acolytes repeat, make America great again, build the wall, lock her up, drain the swamp, just these 3-word, it's like these, racist Mother Goose nursery rhymes. That's at the end of the day, it's just bigoted. It's just if Mother Goose was a huge bigot, then that's what we would hear come out of her mouth. And now, having listened to those get recycled for God knows how many years, now Democrats have finally learned that we're not gonna get ahead by advocating for our side in the same way that we did for the ACA, where it's like, well, this is important and Medicare, we have to focus on Medicare Part D. That's not it. But now we have these campaigns, which is mind your damn business is one of these slogans that we have. It's when we fight, we win, for example, and not going back. So Democrats are learning these strong, potent, catchy phrases, and they are repeating them over and over and over, and good on them, because they are getting seared into our brains right now, as they very well should, because that's how you garner this type of enthusiasm right now, and these calls and responses, and that's what this campaign is doing. And it's the first time that Democrats are actually winning the messaging war. And I have a Substack. That's my newsletter. If anybody's interested in subscribing to my newsletter, let's see, I can pin the comments at the top of the comment section. But I did write an entire article today about how, for the first time, Democrats are winning the messaging war, and how important that actually is, because it has been a long time since we actually saw that happen, and God knows we need it. So I've just pinned my latest newsletter piece to the top of the comment section. If you feel like reading it, that's a full read about how, for the first time, Democrats are winning the messaging war. And this is a war that we've been losing since the beginning, really. I mean, we're talking about the days of Newt Gingrich and the advent of Fox News and the Ailes memo. And of course, since then, we've never been able to keep up. We've never had a strong enough media ecosystem to combat the absolute deluge that we were being hit with from the right. And finally we do. If you look at TikTok, for example, there was a study that came out recently from TikTok that said 90% of the content about Donald Trump has been negative, less than 10% positive, and it's flipped for Kamala Harris. About 90% from Kamala Harris's campaign is positive, or about Kamala Harris is positive, 10% is negative. That is not only important in garnering support from Gen Z, which is quickly becoming the biggest voting bloc along with millennials in these elections, and they also vote at lower numbers than older folks do, but it's also important because it solidifies that these two campaigns are going to be about optimism versus doom and gloom. And if you're trying to garner support from people, there is a ceiling in terms of how effective your campaign can be when all you're doing is selling fear. That might have worked for Donald Trump as a demagogue in 2016, but it's clearly not working now. And the minute Kamala Harris came back, jumped into the race, and picked Tim Walz as her VP, and we recognized the extent to which these Democrats became joyful warriors, basically. Look how many people engaged with this campaign. Look how many people came into the political process that weren't there before. She had something like 170,000 young people signed up to be volunteers for the campaign. And of course, they raised $310 million, more than double what the Trump campaign raised. So again, it shows that the ceiling for a campaign predicated in hope and optimism is way higher than a campaign where your only job is to scare the living shit out of people to the extent that they don't even want to leave their houses. There is a ceiling in terms of how much you can get people energized to go vote for you when your whole campaign is based on, look how afraid you should be of black people, of brown people, of immigrants, of women, of Muslims, of LGBT people, of trans people. I mean, that gets tired at a certain point to hate everybody. For the entire duration of the campaign cycle. It gets tired. It gets exhausting. And we're seeing the opposite of that from the Harris campaign right now, which is solely focused on how to expand rights and how to codify abortion rights and reproductive rights, how to make sure that we're combating climate change together, how to make sure that we're finishing the work that they started to bring clean energy manufacturing into the United States, which is the craziest part for me, because you have Republicans who fearmonger on a daily basis about the Chinese Communist Party, and yet by virtue of entrenching our reliance on fossil fuels, all they're doing is seeding the future. And let's be clear, clean energy manufacturing is the future. They are seeding that future to China. This is the time when we need to be investing in clean energy manufacturing. And instead of doing that, because Republicans are so desperate for those campaign donations from oil and gas companies, they are willing to not only sacrifice our future, our national security, but sacrifice it to the very country that they themselves fearmonger about. It goes to show the extent to which these people have no long-standing values. These people have no principles. They will sell anything and anyone down the river if it means they can just help themselves politically. They want those campaign donations because they want to consolidate power for themselves. They do not care about this country, about its future, about the environment, certainly not. Even our own national security. They care about themselves, their jobs, and nothing more. I think we can probably end the poll where I asked, now 11,000 people have responded and said 88% of you are seeing fewer Trump signs. So, very interesting poll results that we're seeing right now. More than almost 11,000 people. That means about 9,900 of you out of 11,000 are seeing fewer Trump signs, while just 1,000 are seeing more Trump signs. Pretty interesting results there. We are about a few minutes away from Tim Walz and Kamala Harris taking stage. Thus far, we've seen the 2 U.S. senators from Nevada. They are in Las Vegas right now. The capacity of this arena is 19,000 people, plus another 1,000 people standing on the floor. I'm not sure if they're sold out right now, but it is pretty damn close, judging by all of the photos that I've seen. In the meantime, while we wait for them to take the stage, if you have questions, why don't you throw them in the chat? If you want to participate in the chat, please just make sure to subscribe. The chat is subscribers only. For those watching right now, there are almost 50,000 of you. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel and you want to stay on top of these live streams, the best way to do that is to subscribe to this channel. I will never paywall any of my content. I don't do sponsorships or host-read ads or anything like that. I'm not here to promote any other companies' products. It is just about the content here. So if you'd like to support the work that I do, again, I don't rely on outside funding. It's just a matter of subscribing, and it's completely free. So if you're not yet subscribed, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. And go ahead and throw some questions in the chat, and we'll make the most of this amount of time that we have right now. What's going on with the hack on Trump's campaign? Good question. So it looks like Donald Trump's campaign fell victim to what they're calling a foreign actors attack, and their information, some campaign information got hacked. And so we don't know what that information is yet. It was sent to Politico. I presume that Politico will publish it because I have no reason to believe that they won't. Also, if you look at the standard that was set by Donald Trump himself when Hillary Clinton's campaign, when the DNC was hacked back in 2016 and it was published by WikiLeaks, Trump, of course, weaponized all of it. He was then asked in 2019 by George Stephanopoulos whether he would report any information that was gained from foreign interference? And he said, no, I would use it. And so now that the shoe's on the other foot and he's become the victim of foreign interference, it'll be very interesting to see where Donald Trump lies. And no pun intended there. It'll be very interesting to see where Donald Trump stands on this issue, because he spent the last few years kind of celebrating information no matter how it came to him. And yet now that he's the victim of purported foreign interference, it'll be interesting to see whether suddenly it's a bad thing. I have a feeling I know where he's going to stand on that issue. Also, if you want me to answer your question, please make sure to tag my name so I can see it. It'll show up in orange. Do I think that fewer people are putting up Trump signs because of embarrassment? I would be embarrassed. I mean, this guy's latest bits of news were that he doesn't understand what it means to be biracial, and more recently that he's great because his insurrection crowd on January 6th was bigger than Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech crowd. I'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you? Yesterday, Kamala called for the support for Native Americans. Is she the first candidate to do so? I don't believe so. I mean, I know we have the Secretary of the Interior herself is a Native American, so I believe this has been a long-standing tradition among Democrats to fight for and recognize the rights of Native Americans. Was Marco Rubio another VP candidate for Trump? Yes, that's what the hack showed, that Marco Rubio was also being vetted by the Trump campaign. It was probably down to some iteration of Rubio and Vance. And leave it to the brilliant folks over at the Trump campaign, and probably Don Jr., Eric, and Tucker Carlson, they went with Vance, which was not the smartest tactical decision I could have thought of. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions here. When am I going to become Kamala Harris's press secretary? I am not. I am perfectly content to sit in my spot here in progressive media. I think, look, you will not find a bigger champion for progressive media than me. I've helped a lot of people with their channels and given advice to a lot of people with their channels, and I want as many people to grow progressive media as possible so that we can finally fight back the deluge of disinformation that we're always contending with from the right. So I'm perfectly content here, and I think that this is actually where the battle is actually being fought more than anywhere else. What would I have put Biden's odds of winning in November at compared to Kamala's? Probably, I mean, judging by the polling, 35%. Kamala's 55%. I think that's a fair assessment right there. But look, again, none of that is to make you complacent. Anything can happen. We were confident when Hillary Clinton was running in 2016. I beg of you, do not be overconfident now. Use this moment and this momentum and this energy and this enthusiasm not to make you complacent, but to inspire you. Find somebody in your life who wouldn't have otherwise voted and make them your responsibility.
And vote in November. You know why? Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Come on. All the way up. I'm all the way up.
What is Trump's current view of absentee and mail-in ballots? He seems to change on this all the time. He'll claim at some points, because he's been pressured to by his campaign, to embrace mail-in voting. His campaign is suing every state across the country to prevent mail-in voting. They just lost court cases in Mississippi and Nevada in the last week that would prevent them from counting mail-in ballots that came in after Election Day. And if they were successful, that would have impacted hundreds of thousands of ballots, most of which come from soldiers overseas. So the next time Republicans beat their chest as the party of the military, remember that right now they are trying to disenfranchise members of the military overseas by making sure that if any of their ballots come in late, which the majority of them do, they make up the majority of those late ballots, they wouldn't have their votes counted. If the election isn't certified by January 20th, who will be the acting president? The election will be certified in time. For those asking about my book, when does it ship? It officially goes out. You should get it on Tuesday of this week. So that's a good opportunity for me to pitch this right now. I have a book that's just come out. It is right now probably neck and neck with J.D. Vance's book. So if you'd like to support my work and help by ordering my new book, it's called Shameless, and the foreword is written by Jamie Raskin. I'll put the link right here in the I'll pin the link right in the comment section here, so you can head over to that link right there. You can also just go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Bookshop.org is a great option if you're looking to support independent booksellers. Bookshop.org, and just pre-order my book Shameless. That is a great way to support what I do. Again, I'll never put any of my content behind a paywall. So if you are looking to support me and you want to read a book that focuses on how Republicans have used their long-standing branding to hide behind, their branding as the party of the Constitution, the party of family values, of states' rights, of fiscal responsibility, of law and order, of the military, which is all bullshit, and how they've hidden behind that for so long to give themselves cover to act in a way that's antithetical to that, and how the media has helped them do it, this book is the right one for you. It's I'm very proud of the way it turned out. So again, if you'd like to order Shameless, you can click the link in the comments section or check out Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or bookshop.org. Will they fact check live during the debates going forward? I highly doubt it. I doubt it, but you know what? I think if there's a debate and Kamala Harris is standing on stage next to Donald Trump, the onus will not so much be on the moderator to interject, because of course then we'll get the inevitable cries of interference by the networks. Kamala Harris will be able to rebut all the bullshit that Donald Trump is spewing on a daily basis anyway, on a minute-by-minute basis anyway. I'm not worried at all. She has his number. She knows, well, to use a quote from Kamala Harris herself, she knows his type. And we've listened to Donald Trump spew his lies enough to know exactly what he's going to say. He frames himself as some champion for earned benefits. Dude tried to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security from every single budget he handed down as president. Every single time. There was never a single budget that he presented that bolstered any one of those earned benefits. So he'll pretend that he's for earned benefits when, in fact, Kamala Harris will absolutely be able to recognize and show on that stage that he's not. He'll claim that he's some moderate on abortion. Dude has been running around the country beating his chest about how he's responsible for appointing the Supreme Court majority that would go on to overturn Roe. Donald Trump will 100% sign a nationwide abortion ban into law, and Kamala Harris, to her credit, had this issue be the issue that she focused on for the last year as vice president. She was crisscrossing the country, speaking to college kids all across the U.S., and she was focusing on the issue of abortion, presenting herself as a champion on this issue, which is easily the most potent issue that Democrats have right now. It's the issue responsible for Democratic wins in unlikely states like Ohio and Kansas and Kentucky and even Alabama. So again, another potent issue. So whatever it is on that stage, Kamala Harris is going to be able to just absolutely dunk on whatever Donald Trump says, and I have no worries about her inability to actually do that. With that said, I think it's important when Donald Trump holds his own rallies, his own press conferences, that there should be fact checks. And so when he did his Mar-a-Lago press conference, for example, I live streamed that, fact checked the entire thing all the way through. Gone are the days where we can actually allow Donald Trump to just spew his nonsense and then do some half-ass fact check afterwards. That's not going to cut it. If you are going to show Donald Trump's words, which I maintain that we should, and I'll explain that in a minute, it has to be met with fact checks in real time. And so that's exactly what I try to do on this channel. So again, if you'd like to watch these live streams or press conferences and rallies that Trump or Kamala Harris do, and of course Trump's will be met with the fact checks that they deserve, please make sure to subscribe. Here's why I think it is important to show Donald Trump. He has largely benefited from being out of the zeitgeist over the last few years. When people see Donald Trump, it's not like he's going to be heaped with some attention that led to his win in 2016 because it was just attention in a vacuum that led to his win. It's the fact that when people see him, they are reminded of the chaos and the dysfunction and the outright stupidity that the guy shows, that he displays every single time he opens his mouth. So we should absolutely make sure that people see him. Again, when his poll numbers were going up, it's because people forgot about him. They forgot about the chaos that enveloped this country when he was president. And so he's largely benefiting from that, that we're not seeing every single day news coverage about his press conferences where he said to inject disinfectant and where he was pushing people out of the way at NATO and the UN, and when he became a laughingstock of the country where he threatened to send the military into American cities, on and on and on. It was chaos on a daily basis. And the more we can remind people about that by showing them who Donald Trump is and not letting him benefit from the relative obscurity, but instead broadcasting when he says this stupid shit, when he says that he thinks that windmills are causing cancer and that something about sharks and magnets. I mean, I don't even have enough room in my head right now to remember all of the absurd things that he's actually said, that World War II hadn't happened yet, that Barack Obama is the current president, that I'm going to get a whole list, I'm sure, in the comments of all the things that he said, that most recently, that you can't be biracial. I mean, the list goes on, and that Nikki Haley was in charge of the Capitol on January 6th. Make sure people know this is not somebody who's okay. When you were standing up there bragging that you passed a test intended to detect dementia, that's not a good thing. And the more Americans who can see that, the more people will recognize that this is not a guy who is fit to be in the highest office in the United States of America. How many people do I think show up at Trump's rallies just for the sideshow who aren't voting for him? I think most people who are going to his rallies, if not all, are voting for him. I wouldn't underestimate the fact that he still has his base. He does have a ceiling in terms of how high that base is. So again, the last thing we should do is underestimate Donald Trump, because we've done that before and it doesn't work out super well for us. So we have to make sure that we complement our confidence with action here. First time paying this much attention to politics, what can we expect from the DNC? I actually don't know what to expect from the DNC, but I expect them to continue the enthusiasm that we're seeing right now, to continue spreading the message that we're seeing right now, which Democrats have done an especially effective job at. And I'm not sure, but I'll be there. I'll actually be at the DNC, so I head to Chicago next week, and it'll be very interesting. So I guess another pitch here, if you'd like to get my coverage from Chicago, from the convention, where hopefully I have the opportunity to not just cover it, but speak to a lot of people there. I know there are going to be a ton of surrogates from, Pete Buttigieg to a lot of these Senate candidates to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz themselves appearing at the DNC. President Biden, I believe, is going to be there, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to do my best to be able to speak to as many people as possible so we can hear directly from these folks.
Support Vice President Harris and Governor Walz.
Do I think Kamala can win the debate? I absolutely have zero qualms about the fact that I'm saying Kamala Harris can win the debate. Absolutely. Look at how effective she's been in her messaging versus Trump's. Again, we just touched on this briefly, but Kamala Harris has been very clear about the prosecutor versus felon framing. How do you get around that? That unto itself is already disqualifying for Trump. Dude is a 34-time convicted felon awaiting sentencing on September 18th and also awaiting prosecution in 3 other trials in DC, Florida, and Georgia, and possibly Arizona at this point, because we also found out that the grand jury in Arizona, when they indicted 18 co-defendants, also expressed a willingness to indict Donald Trump. So don't sleep on Arizona, because I think at some point we'll either see a superseding indictment or a separate case against Donald Trump in Arizona when there are, when there is more confidence among the prosecutors that they can actually prosecute that case. So already right there, when you have prosecutor versus felon from a guy who is running for the, taking up the mantle to lead the purported party of law and order, I mean, give me a break. Beyond that, she just has to lean into the issues of abortion rights. She herself, again, is a champion for abortion rights, while Donald Trump has presented himself as the biggest opponent to abortion rights in the entire country by appointing a third of the Supreme Court that overturned Roe and then bragging about it relentlessly, even in the face of Republican losses, again, in states like Kansas, Kentucky, Ohio, Alabama, and Virginia. So on issue after issue, look, the Democrats have the majority of support on every issue, whether it's climate change, whether it's healthcare, reproductive rights, gun safety, democracy, the Supreme Court. On issue after issue, there is no issue where Republicans are actually more popular than Democrats. And so if Kamala Harris just goes up there and tells the truth, we'll be totally fine. Do I think Texas is a swing state this election? So I think right now we are damn close to seeing Texas approach the point where it's in swing state territory. I'm not quite sure if it's there yet, but I do know that Beto O'Rourke came within, I believe, 1.5 or 2 points. I believe 1.5 of Ted Cruz, and I think that was back in 2018. Colin Allred is the Democratic candidate, is already raising more money than Beto O'Rourke did and garnering more enthusiasm. And so if ever there was a person who can get us even closer than Beto's margin to flip Texas, it's Colin Allred right now. So keep an eye on Texas. I think if the polls keep moving the way they do, where forget about, when Donald Trump was running against Joe Biden, the polls were bad for Democrats in places like New Mexico and Virginia. I mean, if we're losing New Mexico, Donald Trump is looking at well over 300 electoral votes. Now, according to the latest New York Times polling, Kamala Harris is leading Trump by 4 points in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. If we start winning these swing states, these very tight battleground states, by 4 percentage points, if the polls are true, which, caveat, we it's just a snapshot in time, not a predictor of the future, then we may very well be looking at flippable states like Texas and Florida. So keep an eye on what happens in Texas, but Democrats are running the races how they should be running them right now. I'm being asked, do I have an audiobook in the mix and who did it? I narrated the audiobook, and that is also available for order right now. So if you click the link at the top of this comment section or just go to briantylercohen.com/book, it'll take you to all the links, and the audiobooks are narrated by me. Do I think it would be a good idea to have a Chris Christie-type Republican speak at the DNC? Absolutely. I think that any Republican who wants to give a permission structure to other Republican voters absolutely is welcome. Look, what the Democrats are doing right now is focusing not on exclusivity, but inclusivity. The whole point of beating Donald Trump is going to be to build a coalition of not just Democrats, but independents and pro-democracy Republicans who recognize the threat that he poses to this country. And so we need Republicans. I do a show on this very channel with Tim Miller called Inside the Right. Tim Miller was a longtime aide for Jeb Bush, a longtime Republican, and we do a show together so I can get a perspective of somebody who spent his life on the right before recognizing the unique danger posed by someone like Donald Trump. And so now, of course, he's a former Republican, but it's important to bring those voices in. We should not be about excluding anybody. And so sure, if we want to have Republicans speak at the RNC and offer up a permission structure to Republican voters out there who may not want to sacrifice a big part of their identity. I mean, think about for a lot of you watching right now, if somebody asks you who you are, you'd probably say some iteration of your religion, your background, ethnicity, your race. And for a lot of people, right up there is that you're a Democrat or you're an independent, and that is important to you. It's a part of your identity. And so for these Republicans to say, don't be a Republican, is basically saying, I'm denying you a part of your identity. What's going to happen? They're going to get defensive, and that's not going to bring them into your coalition. But if you say, be a Republican, that's totally fine. And we have this new organization through the Harris campaign called Republicans for Harris that allows them to keep intact this part of their identity that's been so personal and important to them for so long, while still recognizing that you don't have to just toe the line and pull the lever for Donald Trump because he has an R next to his name. And that, in fact, if you are a true conservative, you're not going to vote for this MAGA Republican Party because they don't stand for anything that Republicans claim to stand for. And again, going back to what my book is about, Republicans claim to stand for the party of family values. They are lining up behind a guy who just was found guilty on 34 felony counts for charges related to a hush money payout for an affair he had with a porn star while his wife was at home with their infant son. That's the party of family values? Are you kidding me? The party of fiscal responsibility? Donald Trump added $7.8 billion trillion to the debt? Are you kidding me? The party of states' rights? When you had the Texas lawsuit in 2020 try to invalidate the election results in 4 other states because Texans didn't like how those other states voted, and all these Republican attorneys general signed onto that lawsuit? Are you kidding me? The party of the Constitution, when the Republicans were the first party in over 200 years to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, and you're the party of the Constitution? Are you kidding me? The party of law and order? I mean, do I even have to do this one in the aftermath of January 6th? So on issue after issue, Republicans have presented themselves a certain way, but in reality, they have nothing to actually back that up. So yes, to finish answering that question, we should absolutely welcome pro-democracy Republicans into this campaign.
We got a vibe, Vegas. Here we go.
Am I worried that the energy behind Harris might not deliver votes in November, i.e. Clinton, Trump? Yeah, of course. Of course I'm worried about that. Of course I'm worried about, I worry I work in politics. I work in political media. Am I not worried? Here's the thing. Already my anxiety level, when you're Jewish, your anxiety is already at your birthright is that you have anxiety at a 9. And then I decided to jump into politics. And so I'm at a 13. That's my resting anxiety level. Yeah, of course I'm worried. I lived through the entirety of the Trump era. I reported on it on a daily basis. I report on Donald Trump on a daily basis now. So yeah, of course I'm worried. And so that's why it's not enough to just say here's how bad Donald Trump is. It's also to say, here's what Democrats are promising. And it's also make sure everybody is registered to vote. Make sure that you find somebody in your circles of people who wouldn't otherwise have voted and bring this farther out. Make sure everybody recognizes the agency that they have, the responsibility that we all have to find somebody who wouldn't have otherwise voted. It's not just about us. We can't just focus on ourselves. We all have to find somebody, find a family member, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor who wouldn't have otherwise voted. Make that person your responsibility. I promise you, some of these states are going to be won by not millions of votes, not hundreds of thousands of votes, not even tens of thousands of votes, but just thousands. And to know that you played a big part in finding 1 or 2 or even 3 people who wouldn't have otherwise voted, and that was replicated just a few hundred times by other people, and that you could be the person, those could be the people who changed the election outcome from Trump to Kamala Harris. That's huge. So we all have agency here. It's not just about posting online and just cheering from the solitude of staring at our computers. It's about doing something and actually getting involved.
Please welcome public school teacher Tilly Torres.
Again, for those who are tuning in right now, if you'd like to support this live stream and watch other live streams that I'm going to be hosting on a daily basis here, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. It does not cost you anything to do so, but it's the best way to support my work.
Hello, Las Vegas! I am so excited to be here with all of you and also kind of nervous. Who's excited to see the next president of the United States and vice president? Woo! My name is Tilly Torres, and I'm an English teacher right here in Las Vegas. I've been teaching in Clark County for over 24 years. I'm also a mother of 3 beautiful adult children, and they are all teachers like me. Growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher because I saw education for what it really was, the greatest instrument of social justice in this country. I grew up in Hawaii, and I worked full-time for most of my high school and college. I also took care of my mom, who was disabled. We were in and out of homelessness, but as a first-generation college student, I needed to take out loans in order to attend university in my home state while working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs. But my education unlocked opportunity for me, opportunity that led me to becoming a teacher right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Sadly, life happened. A few years after I graduated, I was diagnosed with cancer. Between fighting cancer, caring for my husband, who was injured at the time, and becoming a mom, I wasn't able to make regular payments on those student loans for quite some time. But at 50 years old, after making those regular payments for almost 30 years on a loan of $40,000, I somehow still owed $87,000.
And remember, Republicans have been blocking student loan debt relief in court.
With that terrible debt for the rest of my life. And it was my daughter who told me about President Biden and Vice President Harris's actions to fix public service loan forgiveness. I applied. I didn't think much of it. I had zero hope. But I got to tell you, when I got that letter from the Department of Education saying I owed zero, it was the best day of my life. The wave of relief that I felt, it's indescribable. Because of the Biden-Harris administration, for the first time, I have financial freedom. As a teacher, I routinely tell my students the same thing I learned growing up, that education is the key to opportunity. And now, thanks to Biden-Harris, I believe it too. But when I look at Donald Trump, I see someone who wants to take away the opportunities from my students and my family. His Project 2025 agenda is calling for completely eliminating the Department of Education. As a public school teacher, that's terrifying. There could not be anything more fundamentally different between Donald Trump's backwards vision for our America and Kamala Harris's vision for our progress. When I look at Kamala Harris, I see someone who represents my family and understands the struggles of everyday Americans like me. She grew up a daughter of a working mother, too. She even worked at McDonald's. And in November, we here in Nevada are going to make her the next president of the United States. That's what America is, and that's what we stand for. Kamala's vision for America is an America you and I can be proud of. And let me just say, as a teacher, I could not be more excited about future Vice President, Governor Tim Walz. Couldn't be. I knew that Tim Walz was the man for the job when I found out that as a teacher, he supervised the lunchroom for 20 years. As a fellow high school teacher, all I can say is that if Governor Walz can handle a high school lunchroom for 2 decades and coach his football team to state championships, the vice presidency should be a piece of cake. And I know that we here in Nevada are going to do everything we can to get Kamala and Tim over the finish line. Now, I heard it's a little cold up there in Minnesota. That's where Tim's from. So let's give a record-breaking 120-degree welcome to the next Vice President of the United States, Governor Tim Walz.
Let's go. Here we go. Listen to this reaction. This dude's a rock star.
Wow,
it's
wow,
wild.
wow. Hey. Wow. Wow. One more time for Tilly. Thank you. Well, hello, Las Vegas. Now, I know some of you spent the week Googling Minnesota a little bit and to figure out who these Minnesotans were. Here's the one thing I can tell you about us. We spend about half our lives talking about the weather. It's what we do. So I want to say thank you to all of the people since I've been here to remind me that it's a dry heat outside. So's your damn oven, but you know, I'm melting like a snowman outside. But look, this is incredible. And I want to say a thank you to a few folks I had the privilege of working with when I served in Congress. You have two of the best senators you could ever hope for. Senator Cortez Masto and Senator Rosen, just as a side note, there's lots of commonalities here. It may not be the weather. We walk on water half the year. It's so damn cold, but that's what we are. But we have something in common. Both Minnesota and Nevada have two women senators, and that's a pretty good thing. Huge thank you to Congressman Horsford, Congresswoman Lee, and a longtime friend I served with, Congresswoman Titus. Grateful. The special thank you is for what I'm looking at right here. To every one of you who took time out of your busy lives. You didn't need to be here. There's many things you could have been doing. You chose. You braved 108-degree heat. I can't even believe I'm saying that, just to be here. And I have to tell you, I understand because of the heat, they had to shut the door early and turn thousands of folks away. But don't worry, we're going to be back a lot. All the things, you got babysitters, you had to do everything. But you came here for something bigger than yourselves, for one simple, eloquent, and beautiful reason. You love this country. I'm so incredibly proud to be on this ticket, and I want to give a big shout out with the support of a special group tonight, Culinary Workers Union 226. We're here for that love and the end of this road. Remember, 87 days. Rarely in your life do you get an opportunity in 87 days to change the trajectory of not just today or tomorrow, but for generations around the world. And I keep saying this, we can do anything for 87 days, and my mantra is, we'll sleep when we're dead. We'll sleep when we're dead. Because when you wake up on that 88th day, you're going to get to say, welcome, Madam President Harris. This is a leader that wakes up every day to try and do things for the American people. She took on the predators, the fraudsters, the transnational gangs, stood up against the greed of corporate interests, stood with working people in organized labor, and never failed to reach across the aisle if it meant improving people's lives. I was taught a little something about that commitment too. I was born in a small town in Nebraska where community was a way of life. There's some Nebraskans in the house. Yay, corners. You think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding? 400 people, 25 kids in my class, 12 were cousins. That's small town. That's small town. But you know what? My parents and my community taught me generosity towards my neighbor and to work for the common good. My dad was a chain-smoking Korean War-era veteran who 2 days after my 17th birthday took me down to sign up to join the National Guard. I was proud for the next 24 years to wear the uniform of this country. Thank you to every single one of you who wore that uniform. And I have to tell you, like my dad before me and millions of others, the GI Bill gave me a shot at a college education. And just like Tilly, my dad was a teacher, my older brother was a teacher, my sister was a teacher, my younger brother was a teacher. And we married teachers. So the privilege of my lifetime was spending 2 decades teaching in public schools. And you might have heard coaching football to a state championship. So. Don't ever close that yearbook. That's my pro tip. Look, my students and my players are the ones who encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I hope to instill in them, a commitment to a common good, and something so important, the belief, as each and every one of you came here as a single person can make a difference. Can make a difference. Never planned my life to run for office, but I think my life prepared me well. And when my neighbors asked if I'd run for office, I was pretty clueless. I did not know that the district I was running in had only had one Democrat since 1892 before me. But my community graced me with the opportunity to represent them in the United States Congress for 12 years. Where I had the privilege of serving as the ranking member on the VA committee, working with Republicans to pass the most extensive veterans package since the GI Bill. I learned the art of compromising without compromising my values. And as governor, I bring all those experiences together to tackle the most pressing challenges we have in the great state of Minnesota. Now, each of you came here. You came here because you love the country. You came here because you know how fantastic leader is going to walk out those doors in a minute or two. The person that you see bringing everything to us. But just be very clear here. Donald Trump sees the world very differently than all of us here. Each of you talk about service. Donald Trump knows nothing about service. It's pretty hard to provide service to others when you're too busy looking out for only yourself. Again and again and again, Donald Trump made decisions to weaken this country to strengthen his own hand. He mocked our laws. He sowed division and chaos amongst our citizens. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the global COVID pandemic, and our neighbors died because of it. By not addressing COVID, he drove our economy into the ground. And I just want to set the record straight because facts do matter, and there's not an alternate set of facts. Here's one for you. Violent crime was up during the Trump presidency. And that's even not counting his crimes. Some of you gray hair or no hairs in here can actually remember a time when Republicans actually talked about freedom and believed in it. Not these guys. These are the guys that believe government should be free to invade your exam room with your doctor. I'm sure it's true here in Nevada as it's true in Minnesota. We respect our neighbors' rights to make their own personal choices. We don't have to agree with them or make the same choice, but we know that this nation, things work best when you mind your own damn business. When you mind your own damn business. I don't need any help. I don't need any help from those guys telling me which books to read. I sure the heck don't need any lecture about morality from those guys. And the last thing they can mind their own damn business is I don't need any help from them talking about my family. And this is where it gets personal, where they want to dictate things like IVF and reproductive care. I know there's a lot of you out there, this is the most personal choices we have. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through fertility treatments. And I said, I remember, we have somebody to help? You have water? All right, thanks for helping your neighbors. But you helping? You're good? All right, thank you. Sure. I remember those waiting for the phone calls. You'd go through the treatments. I would have my neighbor come over to have to give shots to my wife and things like that. And the phone would ring, and you would just hope so highly that it would be good news. And then when you found out the treatments didn't work, it was a darkness that could blot out the sun. So I have to tell you, it wasn't by chance when that phone call finally came, and we found out we were going to welcome our daughter into the world. We named her the most powerful word in the universe, hope. Hope. So when you hear Kamala Harris and I talk about freedom, we're very clear about this. We mean the freedom to make your own health care decisions. And that your children should be free to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in their classroom. Look, again, I know Nevada's a lot like Minnesota. In Minnesota, we believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in common sense gun violence laws. Vice President Harris believes education should be a ticket to the middle class, not crippling student loan debt. And we come here today because in 87 days, we're going to settle our political differences not through violence. We're going to settle it by beating them at the ballot box. So look, I keep saying this. This is a pretty simple thing here. This election's about the choice, about what direction this country will go in. And I want to be clear. I know very clearly that I am preaching to the choir, but here's my words for you. The choir needs to sing. The choir needs to sing. So the other day I was saying this. I started out by saying, don't believe Donald Trump when he plays dumb about 2025. But then I remembered, you don't believe him on anything because that's what you shouldn't believe. But look, I coached football for enough years. When somebody draws up a playbook, they plan on using it. And when they do, they'll restrict our freedoms. When they do, they'll do what they've done. They'll rig the economy so that the middle class gets nothing and the rich get richer. If this guy gets an opportunity again, he won't only pick up where he left off, it will be much worse than it was last time. He'll gut Social Security, pull your health care, underfund public schools, all of it. That's damn right. Damn right. We're not going back. Look, this guy's not fighting for you or your family. He doesn't give a damn. And his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda. I said this. All of my friends, we went to Yale, had billionaires fund our career, and then we write a book trashing our neighbors that raised us. Come on, we're better than that. We're better than that. And I said it, I want to be clear. I didn't call anybody names. I spent enough years in that lunchroom to know bullies when I see them. I just made a very clear observation that they seem to be really concerned about. I pointed out that taking away reproductive freedoms, banning books, raising the price of insulin, trying to hurt labor unions, nobody's asking for that weird crap. No one's asking for it. Here's the good news. We do the work. This is about the future. We do the work. None of that's going to happen. Vice President Harris believes in those freedoms. She knows that every single person should get a chance at the middle class. She believes in something so beautiful, the promise of America. It's that simple, the promise of America. Madam Vice President, I want to say thank you for putting the trust in me to be your running mate. And I want to say, she has done so much. And with you together, it's reminded us about something. It's reminded us that this work can be about goodness. It can be about smiling. It's tough work, but we can be happy doing it. And Kamala Harris has done something that we will forever be grateful for her. She has brought out the joy in our politics. Nevada, join me in welcoming the next President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Here we go.
Telling these tears go and fall away, fall away. May the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose.
It just doesn't get better than this music.
Where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
The hell out of YMCA, huh?
Hey, Nevada! Can we hear it for Tim Walz? Oh, it's so good to be back. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Oh, I see lots of friends. Oh, it is good to be back. It is good to be back. Thank you all. My goodness. But seriously, isn't Tim Walz fantastic? And I know for some folks, you're just getting to know him, and you've heard he's had many titles over his life: governor, congressman, dad, husband, coach. But in 87 days, our nation is going to know Coach Walz as Vice President of the United States of America. That's right. And it is so good to be here with so many incredible leaders, including my dear friends, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Senator Jackie Rosen, who we will re-elect to the United States Senate. Congress members Dina Titus, Stephen Horsford, and Susie Lee. And I know Culinary 226 is in the house. And I will tell you, and the Culinary Union, as everyone in Nevada knows, they have helped lead the way in our country for workers' rights and workers' dignity. And I have to say, for years, I've been so proud to work by your side. When I was Attorney General of California, we worked together to crack down on wage theft. When I was a United States Senator, we fought together for paid family leave and medical leave. And earlier this year, right here in Vegas, we celebrated your historic contract win. And it is my promise to everyone here, when I am president, we will continue our fight for working families of America. Including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. And Nevada, today I also bring greetings from our incredible President, Joe Biden. Joe. We love Joe. And I know, I'm going to tell them what y'all just said. And I know we are all so deeply grateful to Joe Biden for his lifetime of service to our nation. And he's not done. And he's not done. So as I said, it's so good to be back in Las Vegas. The last time I was here, I stopped by the practice for the men's national basketball team before they headed out to the Olympics. And maybe you saw it on your phone, but just a few hours ago in Paris, they won the gold. And I got more for you. A few hours before that, our women's national soccer team won the gold as well. one sport after another, Team USA continues to make our nation proud. So much to celebrate, so much to celebrate. So, Nevada, we have 87 days until the election. 87 days. And here's the thing. But here's the thing. We know this will be a tight race until the very end. And so let's not pay too much attention to the polls, because we have some hard work ahead of us. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work. And with your help this November, we will win. We will win. We will win. We will win. And I know we are all clear toward that win. We are all clear about what we are up against. As many of you know, before I was elected vice president, before I was elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general, and before that, district attorney.
I think we know this part of the speech.
And before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, scammers who broke the rules for personal gain. So Nevada, hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. Hold on. The court's gonna take care of that. We just gonna beat him in November. We'll beat him in November. But I've certainly been dealing with people like him my entire career. For example, as Attorney General of California, I took on one of our country's largest for-profit colleges that scammed students. Well, Donald Trump ran a for-profit college that scammed students. Remember that. As a prosecutor, I specialized in cases of sexual abuse. Well, Donald Trump was found liable for committing sexual abuse. As Attorney General, I held Wall Street banks accountable for fraud. Well, Donald Trump was just found guilty of fraud, 34 counts. All of this is to say, in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his every day of the week. Every day of the week. That being said, let's make no mistake, this campaign is not just about us versus Donald Trump. It is about two different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future. The other, focused on the past. We're not going back. We're not going back. We are not going back. And we're not going back because, Nevada, we fight for the future. A future future with affordable health care, affordable child care, and paid leave. We fight for a future where we build a broad-based economy where every American has an opportunity to own a home, to start a business, and to build wealth. We believe in a future where we lower the cost of living for America's families so they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. To get ahead. Because look, while our economy is doing well by many measures, prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. When I was Attorney General, I went after price-fixing schemes. And when I am president, I will continue that work to bring down prices. I will take on big corporations that engage in illegal price gouging, corporate landlords that unfairly raise rents on working families, and take on big pharma and cap the cost of prescription drugs for all Americans. Unlike Donald Trump, I will always, I promise you, put the middle class and working families first. Because you see, Tim Walz and I may not appear to have a whole lot in common, but we have so much in common. And I'll tell you what he and I know, the middle class built the United States of America. And when the middle class is strong, America is strong. And so while we, together, work to move our nation forward, Donald Trump has a different plan. Just look at his Project 2025 agenda. Which I keep saying, I can't believe they put that in writing. And so if he is elected, Donald Trump intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. And he intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis. And I don't need to tell Nevada every day, because you feel the impact of extreme heat and drought. You know the climate crisis is real. But Donald Trump, well, he claims it's a hoax. And on top of this, if Donald Trump were to win in November, he won't. But if he were to win in November, he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. Think about that. To take us back to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions? You remember what that was like? Children with asthma, breast cancer survivors, grandparents with diabetes. Look, America has tried these failed policies before, and we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We're 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 not going back. And we are going to move forward. We will move forward. And in moving forward, we will take on the biggest issues facing our nation. For example, we will address the issue of immigration. I was the attorney of a border state, attorney general of a border state. I went after transnational gangs, drug cartels, and human traffickers who came into our country illegally. I prosecuted them in case after case, and I won. We know our immigration system is broken, and we know what it takes to fix it. Comprehensive reform that includes, yes, strong border security and an earned pathway to citizenship. But Donald Trump doesn't want to fix this problem. He talks a big game about a lot of things. But he talks a big game about border security, but he does not walk the walk. Earlier this year, we had a chance to pass the toughest bipartisan border security bill in decades. But Donald Trump tanked the bill because he thought it would help him win an election. Well, when I am president, I will sign that bill into law. Nevada, ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Across our nation, we have been witnessing a full-on assault on hard-won, hard-fought freedoms and fundamental rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. And the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. A fight for freedom. And on that last point, we all know how we got here. When he was president, Donald Trump handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court because he intended for them to undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as he intended, they did. Now, in more than 20 states, there is a Trump abortion ban. Many with no exceptions, even for rape and incest. And be sure, if he were to win, he would sign a national abortion ban, which would outlaw abortion in every state, even Nevada. But we are not going to let that happen. Because we trust women. And when I am President of the United States and Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, I will sign it into law. So I know the folks who are here. I know the people of Nevada. You are battle-born. You are battle-born. And if Donald Trump wants to pick a fight over our most fundamental freedoms, we say, bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on. So Nevada, generations generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. Now, the baton is in our hands. Each and every one of us. So we who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And we who believe in the freedom to live safe from gun violence will finally pass an assault weapons ban, universal background checks, and red flag laws. So much is on the line. So much is on the line in this election. And understand, this is not 2016. This is not 2020. This time around, the stakes are even higher. And that's because last month, the Supreme Court of the United States basically told the former president that going forward, he will effectively be immune no matter what he does in the White House. But think about what that means. Think about what that means. So Donald Trump has vowed to be a dictator on day one if reelected. He said he will weaponize, essentially, the Department of Justice against his political enemies. And even called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States. Let us be very clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of President of the United States.
Damn. Get it.
Never again.
Get it.
What we stand for as Americans. And you know, it all comes down to this. We are here together because we love our country. We love our country. And I do believe it is the highest form of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country. That is how we preserve the promise of America. And think about it. After all, the promise of America is what makes it possible for Tim Walz and me to be together on this stage today. Think about that. Think about that. Think about it. 2 middle-class kids, one a daughter of Oakland, California, who was raised by a working mother. I had a summer job at McDonald's. The other, a son of the Nebraska plains who grew up working on a farm. Think about it. Think about it. Only in America is it possible that the two of them would be running together all the way to the White House. Only in America. Only in America. So look, and I love you back. I love you back. So look, we are together, we are running this campaign on behalf of all Americans. From red states to blue states, from the heartland to the coast. And when elected, we will govern on behalf of all Americans. All Americans. So Nevada, ultimately in this election, I believe we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? A country of chaos, fear, and hate? Or a country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law? And the beauty of our democracy, here's the thing, the beauty of our democracy is we each person has the power. Each person has the power to answer that question. The power is with the people. The power is with the people. People. And so in the next 87 days, we need you to use your power to knock on doors, register folks to vote, and make your voices heard. So Nevada, today I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
So good.
Come on, march on the regular, painted white flags blue. Lord, forgive me, I've been running blind in truth. I'ma rain on this bitter love. Tell the sweet I'm new. I'm telling these tears go and fall away, oh.
All right. Never like starting until the music is gone because the song is so good. It really is amazing to see how this campaign continues to catch fire right now. This campaign, I know that there's a lot of people in the pundit class who love to try and pretend that okay, the honeymoon period is over and let's get to the tough part of the campaign. She is catching fire. Tim Walz is catching fire. These campaigns rallies are not being held in front of 1,000 people anymore, 2,000 people, 5,000 people. They are selling out arenas, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20,000 people. There is something happening that hasn't happened in the Democratic Party for a long time, certainly since I started paying attention to politics. This is what it looks like when you have organic energy. You can't fake this, you can't buy this, you can't manufacture this. This either happens or it doesn't, and that's what's happening right now. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are absolute superstars at these rallies, and it's only going to get bigger. And what's especially telling right now is that they are holding these rallies and selling out these venues in the most important states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada. Right there. If you get 3 of those, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, done deal. That's the election. That's 270 electoral votes. What we're doing now is working not only to win those states, but expand our lead, to cushion that lead by putting up a fight in these states that would just be gravy on top of it. We win those 3 states, plus Nevada, plus Arizona, contest Georgia, contest a state like North Carolina. Once we have leads in those states, we start looking at Texas, Florida. But you don't let up, you don't take your foot off the gas, you keep contesting every single state. You don't leave any area uncontested. That's why it's so important, for example, that Kamala Harris is opening up field offices in states across the country. Donald Trump barely has any field offices in the entire country. I think he has fewer than 10. Kamala Harris has 3 times that many in Pennsylvania. I don't know what he's doing with his money, but I know that when you vote when you donate to Kamala Harris's campaign or the DNC, they are using that money to make sure that people are engaged, energized, that they are registered to vote, that they know what they're doing on election day, that they know how they're going to get their ballots, that they are talking to people, that there's volunteers, campaign staff in all of these states. That's the difference between putting your money in an organization that actually cares about winning versus putting your money in an organization that is so steeped in grifting, that already somebody, the chief strategist of the former president, Steve Bannon, went to prison for his involvement in that Build the Wall scheme. These people's lives are grifting. It is taking their supporters, turning them upside down, shaking them until all the money in their pockets falls out, and then using that money not on the campaign, but on, I don't know, paying lawyers, paying for Lara Trump's music career. God knows what these people are actually spending their money on, but it's not on campaign offices, it's not on field offices, it's not on get out the vote efforts, and it certainly isn't on good enough campaign staff to know that when you have a rally in Montana, like the Trump campaign did yesterday, and the whole crowd is waiting for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to come on stage, and you have the brilliant idea that the song you're gonna pump into the arena, and I hope you're ready for this, if you don't know what it is yet, oh man, have I got a surprise for you. The song they decide to pump into the arena is Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, from the movie Titanic, which is a movie about a sinking ship. I shit you not. The Trump campaign pumped into the arena in Bozeman, Montana yesterday Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, famous for it being the theme song of that movie about a sinking ship. And this is at the same moment that Donald Trump is flailing right now. Polling most recently, according to the New York Times Siena poll today, showed Donald Trump down 4 points in Michigan, down 4 points in Pennsylvania, down 4 points in Wisconsin. That right there is the election. If these leads hold up until Election Day, and I have to issue that caveat that right now the polling is just a snapshot in time, it is what the electorate looks like on today, August 10th, but it is not a predictor for the future. But if these leads hold into Election Day, and Kamala Harris is still leading in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that's 270 electoral votes. But we all know the kind of antics that Donald Trump has been involved in and engaged in thus far. I've covered extensively on this channel the extent to which Donald Trump is trying to curry favor with Board of Election workers and state election workers and county election workers across the country. There's already as many as 70 election workers who have either denied election results in the past or delayed election results in the past or have expressed election denialism on their own social media platforms, for example. Those people are right now in positions in county elections boards where they can delay or deny the certification of election results. So don't think that Donald Trump isn't still trying to win the election, even if not in democratic avenues, in anti-democratic avenues. And so we have to be vigilant, and our job is to make sure that even if we do win in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, that we make the election results seem as if they are a repudiation of Trumpism by winning in numbers that are just too big to deny. That's our goal. So when we see events like this where Kamala Harris is just absolutely kicking ass, and there are tens of thousands of people who are cramming themselves into these sold-out arenas, and I'm doing live streams where right now we have about 50,000 live viewers, and we will roughly by the morning have about 1 million people who've watched this all together when all is said and done. When we have these kinds of numbers, we should take this not as an excuse to be complacent, for example, but rather as more motivation to kind of light a fire under our asses that we see we can win. It's right ahead of us. There is a light at the end of the tunnel here. As Tim Walz says, we'll sleep when we're dead. We got 86 days. So dig in. Make somebody in your life your responsibility who wouldn't otherwise have voted. It's not enough to just say that you're going to vote, although that's important. Not enough to say that you checked your registration, although that's important. Find one person in your life who wouldn't have otherwise voted, who doesn't care about politics, who wouldn't have been registered to vote otherwise, who is susceptible to misinformation and disinformation, or who doesn't even know the issues, and make that person your responsibility. Find one or two people. I promise you that in these races where the difference is not millions, not hundreds of thousands, not even tens of thousands of votes, but just thousands of votes, every single person finding somebody who wasn't involved in politics and bringing them into the political process is going to make a difference. With that said, I will continue to host these live streams on a daily basis because I know, and I've seen it, and I've watched, that so many outlets in the mainstream media absolutely refuse to cover these rallies and kind of are trying to usher in the exact same thing that they did in 2016, where they completely ignore the Democrats and they just heap attention, unearned attention, onto Donald Trump in hopes that they'll say something and then they can just take his word for it and transcribe his words and give him the exact same political environment that he won in 2016. I absolutely have no intention of doing that. And if I do cover Donald Trump, it will be with live fact checks because God knows he needs it and God knows he doesn't get it from the mainstream media. So if you want to continue to watch live streams like this one where I do cover these rallies across the country and where we keep the enthusiasm up, because everybody here watching right now is all part of this enthusiasm and this energy, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. I don't do sponsors or paid ads or anything like that. I won't ever put my content behind a paywall, but simply subscribing is the best way to support what I do. I also think it's important here to note that the Harris campaign clearly recognizes the potency of the online audience here, and that is why, rather than sticking to the exact same verbatim stump speech like candidates do generally and have done for decades and decades and decades, she knows how many people, her team knows how many people are paying attention online, and that they are getting millions of people watching in addition to the tens of thousands who are showing up at these rallies. And so rather than do the exact same verbatim stump speech every single time, they're changing it up every time so that we all, when we watch, have a different speech from Tim Walz, a different speech from Kamala Harris. And of course, they'll have certain elements that are the same from one to the next. But the fact is that when we're seeing different speeches, it is a nod to everybody watching out here that you're going to get something different that will keep the energy up, that'll keep people watching. And then she'll sprinkle in the same stuff that does work, and that is I've prosecuted people like him. I know Donald Trump's type. She'll keep that. She'll keep the prosecutor versus felon framing. She'll keep these taglines that are completely eclipsing the taglines of the Trump administration. Mind your own business, or mind your own damn business. That's one of them. When we fight, we win. We're not going back. So on a lot of these, the Harris campaign is actually learning from the best of the Biden campaign, the best of the Trump campaign, learning the lessons that have worked in the past and just making them better. They have a better ground game than the Trump campaign, a better messaging game than the Trump campaign, a better organization game than even the Biden campaign, and we're seeing that put on full display right here. So that is good news for a Harris campaign that is just beginning, just finding its footing, and already doing every single thing right off the bat. that is going to be even more important as we head toward these final 86 days. And meanwhile, where's Donald Trump? Where's the guy who beats his chest about having all of this energy? I haven't seen one rally other than Montana yesterday, but otherwise he's been MIA. No rally today, nothing the day before that, nothing the day before that. Dude is MIA while beating his chest about being this beacon of energy and enthusiasm and adulation from his fans, and yet he is completely MIA. What I'll do right now is take this opportunity to answer some questions if you have them. So head over to the chat. Make sure to throw some questions into the chat and tag my name so I can see them, and we'll make the most of this opportunity right here. In the meantime, one quick request, and that is that I have a book coming out in just a couple of days. It's available right now for pre-order. If you've not yet ordered my book, Shameless, I would very much appreciate it. That's another great way to support my work. Again, I don't put any of my content behind a paywall. I've done my content for 6 years here in the exact same way, but this is the first time I'm going to ask for some support. So if you'd like to support these live streams and the rest of my videos, which will always remain free, a great way to do that is by buying my book. It's called Shameless, and it is, let's see if I can pin it to the top of this comment section right here. So if you check the comment section, it is pinned right now. You can also just go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and type in Shameless by Brian Tyler Cohen. It is, I'm very proud of the way that it turned out. The foreword is written by Jamie Raskin. And I talk about Republicans' long-term branding, how they give themselves these branding of party of constitution, states' rights, fiscal responsibility, pro-law and order, pro-military, and they use that as cover to behave completely opposite to how that branding actually presents themselves, and how the media feeds into it and helps them perpetuate this farce. And finally, what Democrats can do to rebalance the political scales. So J.D. Vance's book is doing really well right now. It's having a resurgence since he's been VP. Please help a brother out, and if you'd like to help me, make sure that J.D. Vance doesn't have the top book. Please make sure to buy my book, Shameless. I have the actual copy right here. It's kind of wild to see my name on the cover of a book. I put a lot of my life into this thing, so if you do have the opportunity to grab it, I would very much appreciate it. Okay, let's answer some questions here. What will I do when Kamala wins the election? What will be your coverage and focus? I am going on vacation. I think I have sat in front of this computer screen for 200 days. I don't remember the last time I took a day off. I want not even a long one. I'll just take Saturday and Sunday, to be perfectly honest. I just want to know that for a brief moment, we don't have to think about the imminent threat of Donald Trump and Republicans. That's what I want. But my coverage and focus, which is a fair question, will be on what Democrats are doing, because what we cannot have happen, think about back to 2008. What happened in 2010? Democrats let their guard down after Barack Obama won. There was nobody backing up what Democrats were doing, nobody explaining what Democrats were doing. It created a vacuum that was then filled with right-wing disinformation. What did we hear about the ACA, about Obamacare after Obama introduced it in 2008, 2009? By 2010, it was all fear-mongering about death panels. That's all the ACA was reduced to. And it was exceedingly unpopular, and Democrats lost. They lost running on the ACA. Now, of course, it's beyond popular, and you've had 77 attempts to overturn it. But there was nobody backing up Democrats' good policies. And the ACA is as good a policy as you could absolutely ever have. But there was nobody doing that work. And the right-wing media system, the right-wing media ecosystem went wild, filling that vacuum with disinformation. And now we have a burgeoning, strong, progressive media ecosystem of which this channel is a part. And so absolutely important to make sure that people know what's happening so that we understand why we all went out and voted, why we're spending all of this time dedicating ourselves to politics. There has to be some payoff here. And so when these people take office, when Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, when Democrats win the Senate and the House, and they pass legislation codifying abortion rights and combating climate change and making sure healthcare is more affordable and passing common sense gun safety legislation and reforms to the U.S. Supreme Court that has gone absolutely off the cliff to the right and pass the Voting Rights Act and protects democracy once and for all, it will have been worth it. It will have been worth it to spend all of this time focusing on politics right now. So I absolutely intend to make sure that coverage stays up so that, again, we don't allow this vacuum to be created that Republicans can then fill with disinformation, misinformation, and just outright bullshit. Which poll is the best to follow? So you want to look for highly rated polls, and the poll that came out today, which is the New York Times Siena poll, is a highly rated poll. I believe when, let me see, I think if you go to 538, if you want to see the pollster ratings for 538, so the polls that we should take advantage of that are highly rated are going to be New York Times and Siena College, and that's the one today that came out showing Kamala Harris up against Donald Trump by 4 points in Michigan, up by 4 points in Wisconsin, up by 4 points in Pennsylvania. That is one of the highest rated polls in the country. Another one is ABC News, Washington Post. Another one is Marquette. Another one is YouGov, Monmouth, Marist, and Suffolk. Emerson. So there are about 10 polls. If you just Google 538 poll ratings, you'll see the top rated polls. When you start to get into lower rated polls and you start to look at, Rasmussen, for example, I'm not even sure if you would know them if I said them, but when you see like Republican leaning polls like Rasmussen, that just cast it aside. But when you see a poll like, for example, New York Times Siena, one of the highest rated polls in the entire country, and that's the poll that came out today that showed decidedly bad news for Donald Trump. How are the down ballot ticket Democrats looking so far? Excellent. In fact, that was a rare bright spot even when Biden was still the nominee. We still had Senate candidates, all of whom were leading against their Republican counterparts. And that's in Arizona, that's in Ohio, that's in Wisconsin and Michigan and Nevada and Pennsylvania. That was while Biden was running. So now, absolutely, these Senate candidates are in good shape. But look, all it takes is Democrats to lose one race, and we lose control of the Senate. We're already 51-49. We're going to lose Joe Manchin and that seat in West Virginia, so that makes it 50-50. If we want any hope of maintaining the Senate, that means we have to hold on to seats, defend seats in Arizona, in Nevada, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Montana, and in Ohio. And yeah, the polling is looking good right now. We're 86 days out, a lot of room to go. And, look, not going to be easy to defend seats in Montana. And by the way, that's where Donald Trump held his rally yesterday. So they know what they're doing in the Republican Party to some degree, even though they can't really control what Donald Trump says when he's allowed to speak extemporaneously and he decides to brag that his insurrection crowd on January 6th was bigger than Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech crowd. That's going to do wonders for him with the black community. I'm sure they're going to love that. Donald Trump beating his chest that he was better than Martin Luther King Jr., which is only the second worst thing that he said about black people in just the last week, with, of course, the previous thing being denying the very ethnicity of Kamala Harris, denying her blackness by suggesting that somebody can't be both Indian American and black. I'm sure that's going to do wonders for him as well with the black and biracial community. Do I think Kamala Harris should hold off on interviews until after the convention and just ride the momentum now? That's a good question. I'm actually not sure. But here's what I do know. I fully trust her campaign to make the right choice on that. Look, the media is going to complain that Kamala Harris isn't sitting down with them and giving them attention. The media is entitled to nothing right now, and because they have shown that they're not responsible stewards of holding these politicians to account. When they have Donald Trump and they just allow him to lie and don't hold him to account on what he says, and then have these press gaggles with Kamala Harris, and instead of asking her about her positions, they just pose questions about Donald Trump. Does she really need to sit with the media? Are they showing that they are up to the task of doing what they're supposed to be doing? I think it's important that she talks to the American people right now. I think it's important that she continue to ride this wave of enthusiasm and energy. And she's talking to hundreds of thousands of people both in these arenas and online, millions of people online right now. So ride the energy, ride the enthusiasm. The media is not proving that it's up to the task of actually earning these interviews, because when they get them, with Donald Trump, for example, he just lies. And what do? How do they rebut that? How do they push back? Are they doing an adequately good enough job? Doesn't seem so to me. And so I think she's doing fine. I think she should do exactly what she's doing right now, and she'll talk to the media eventually. But for right now, we're in a good moment where there's a lot of energy, and so take advantage of it. For those asking, will I narrate the audiobook? Yes, I am narrating the audiobook. I did sit in the booth and do the whole thing. So for those who are getting the audiobook of my book, Shameless, it will be my voice, yes. And thank you for asking. And thank you for ordering. I heard you on Pacman's show the other night. I'd love to see more collabs between you two. I will absolutely do more content with Pacman. Pacman is a great guy and a big inspiration for what I do on this channel. Do I think Democrats' polling will plateau after the convention? So I actually think polling will rise after the convention. Look, here's the thing to remember. The convention, any way you cut it, just real talk here, the convention is a big propaganda fest. It is put on by the party for the party. And so it's as good as you could possibly get. It is there to just show people the best side of you. Donald Trump blew his convention because he decided to squander this opportunity where there was no scrutiny, no anything bad. There was no pushback on anything Republicans were doing. It was just their big, glossy, shiny propaganda fest, as the DNC will be. It's the convention is the convention. He squandered that moment by getting up on stage when the whole nation was watching, and instead of making a pitch to the American people, he did a meandering, stream of consciousness, 90-minute diatribe where, for the first half of it, he filleted himself about the fact that he almost got assassinated, then spent another 20 minutes talking about people he knew in the audience, and finally went on his usual stump speech where he rails about windmills and acing a dementia test and any of the other nonsensical things he normally says, talking about the water pressure and showers and toilets, and that he's running against Barack Obama, and that we're heading toward World War III, and he sells fear and vengeance and retribution, and he makes sure to whip everybody up into a frenzy about gay people and black people and brown people and immigrants and trans people and the entire LGBT community and women and young people. Whoever he can whip up fear about, he wants to keep his base good and scared to the point where they're too afraid to even leave the house. That's what Donald Trump's priority is. And so there was really no bump in the aftermath of the Republican National Convention, which is shocking because that is a freebie. That is the only opportunity where there should absolutely be a bump. But after the Democratic Convention, where we see, when we're seeing already this kind of enthusiasm now in these scattershot rallies across the country, just random rallies in Las Vegas and Detroit, Philadelphia, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Imagine when it's on a national stage and everything that the Democrats do blocks out the sun for Republicans. There is no coverage of what Trump is doing, no coverage of what the Republicans are doing. All eyes are on the Democrats. Of course there will be a bump. So I actually think our polling still is going to continue to go up. And that also includes the fact that initially 71% of Americans did not know who Tim Walz was. That means there is a ton of upside, and it is impossible to watch Tim Walz and not fall in love with the guy. He is so good, so charismatic, so likable and relatable and articulate and compelling that when you watch this guy, his approval ratings are going to be through the roof. And the convention is going to offer people yet another platform to be able to be introduced to Tim Walz, if you don't already know him, to be introduced to Kamala Harris, if you don't already know her. And of course, the name ID is high, but when do you actually have an opportunity to meet these people otherwise? And so this will give them that chance to actually meet these people who they haven't heard from before. And so I very much look forward to the DNC because it'll just give these people yet another opportunity to make their case to the American people. And thus far, they've been making that case as effectively as you possibly can. How many usually red states do I think will turn blue this November? Well, look, I don't want to seem overconfident. So I don't know. Look, we should just fight to make sure every state that's blue stays blue. We should make sure to fight that we see a blue Michigan, a blue Wisconsin, a blue Pennsylvania, a blue Nevada, a blue Arizona, keep Georgia blue, and then we can worry about also at the same time working our butts off to make sure North Carolina can go blue and keep that insane lieutenant governor out of the governor's seat. I believe his name is Robinson. He is as crazy as Carrie Lake. I mean, stands up and opposes women having the right to vote. Like, these people are off the wall. So that's a good opportunity for Democrats to actually win in the state of North Carolina, because that ticket is bolstered at the top by some Looney Tune who is as far right as you can possibly find. And look, then we also compete in places like Texas and places like Florida. The donation numbers for Colin Allred in Texas running against Ted Cruz are really promising. So I'm not going to say like we're going to flip all these states, because I don't want to seem overconfident, but that doesn't mean we don't work to flip all these states and go in there with as much confidence as we could possibly get. Am I worried the Supreme Court will overturn the election? Look, I don't think that I'm worried about everything, but I think at this point, the Supreme Court had the opportunity to accept the election claims that were put forward, the baseless election lawsuits that were put forward by Republicans in 2020. They didn't bite on any of them. In fact, 8 different judges who Donald Trump appointed, none of them bit on any of Donald Trump's baseless fraud claims in 2020. So the judiciary held up. And that's not to say that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito won't want to validate these claims, but if what happened in 2020 is any indication, the judiciary largely stood strong in front of these threats that were posed by Donald Trump and Republicans. How beautiful would it be for Mitch McConnell to see the Senate and the House go deeply blue, in part because of his actions? Perfectly put. Mitch McConnell had the opportunity to make sure that Trump was gone. If he had whipped the Senate into voting for Donald Trump's conviction, that would have prevented Donald Trump from running again. But because he is such a coward, because he stands for nothing, because his actions don't match his words, and so he stood up there and said that Donald Trump was morally responsible for the events of January 6th, and yet refused to actually vote to hold him responsible, refused to let his actions actually follow his words. Now Donald Trump was able to stay in the political zeitgeist, was able to run again, and may very well lead his party to losses yet again, just like he did in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2023. So right there, to see that guy end his career when all he wanted to ever do was consolidate power for Republicans, to see him end his career having protected the one guy who would ultimately be responsible for Republican losses across the entire country would be the most poetic justice you could possibly ask for. This is a guy who is so shameless, so overtly shameless, that he blocked a Supreme Court seat that should have gone to Merrick Garland because it was the year of the election, and yet allowed Donald Trump to fill a Supreme Court seat with Amy Coney Barrett within 8 days of the election when ballots were already being cast. This guy stands for nothing. He is abject shamelessness. And to be able to watch Mitch McConnell then end his career, having enabled the one person who would sink his party's only hope of being able to consolidate power, would just be so beautiful. And please, everybody watching, make sure that that's what happens at the end of this election cycle. We all have the ability to make it happen. We did it in 2020. We can do it again. We have the numbers. The anti-Trump coalition is big. The Kamala coalition is making it bigger. I will answer one more question here. So throw some questions in. I will do my best to answer one more. In the meantime, just 2 quick requests here. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel and you want to catch other live streams or just my regular coverage, please make sure to subscribe. I never charge any money for this channel. I'll never put anything behind a paywall, and I'll never do like ads for products. That's just not my jam. And so So all I rely on is just you subscribing to the channel. It's completely free, and it is the best way to support my work. So if you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe. And finally, I have my new book that I'm very proud of, and I spent a big part of my life working on. It's called Shameless. The foreword is written by Jamie Raskin. If you haven't yet bought it and you want to support this channel even more, please, this is the best way to do it. I did interviews with a number of people for this book, exclusive interviews with Pete Buttigieg, Jen Psaki, Mark Elias, Al Franken, Heather Cox Richardson, Dan Pfeiffer, Mehdi Hassan. And so I think you'll really enjoy it. It'll give you a really good understanding of the political environment that we're in right now. And also, one last reason is because J.D. Vance's book is doing extraordinarily well, his book Hillbilly Elegy, and I would love not to be upstaged by J.D. Vance of all people. So if for nothing else, please help the progressive media ecosystem make sure that the conservative media ecosystem doesn't yet again win, because they do really well with books and their people take care of them. So help a brother out. And I pinned the link to pre-order Shameless at the top of the comment section, or you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or bookshop.org if you're looking to support indie booksellers, bookshop.org, and you can order it there. That is also a great way to support what I do. Okay, let's do one more question here, and I'll try to make it a good one. Hillary was already up ahead in the polls in 2016. I'm anxious that this may be another false sense of optimism. I think there's a difference. Yes, Hillary was up in the polls. Yes, we should not take the polls as either sacrosanct or some indication that we've won. Polls are a snapshot in time. They are not a predictor of the future. It means where we are right here today, even accounting for a margin of error, that's what the polls show. But what the Harris campaign has that the Clinton campaign doesn't is a ground game, is they are making sure they are investing in the states we need to be investing in. I'm going to read, I know that some people who have watched this have already heard me talk about field offices, but I think it's worth reiterating here that as far as field offices are concerned, in Nevada, Kamala Harris's campaign has 13 campaign offices. Donald Trump has 1. In Pennsylvania, Harris has 36 campaign offices. Trump has 3. In Georgia, Harris has 24, Donald Trump has 1. So they have a ground game. They are focusing on engaging, organizing, and activating voters in a way that Hillary Clinton's campaign clearly didn't. As far as I know, Hillary Clinton didn't even visit the state of Wisconsin. Kamala Harris's campaign has been in every swing state every day this week. I've hosted live streams where we've showed rallies in Philadelphia, in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in Detroit, Michigan, in Phoenix, Arizona, and tonight in Las Vegas, Nevada. So that is a big deal. They're showing that they are investing in every single one of these swing states, and not just investing in them, but garnering a ton of money, a ton of support, a ton of volunteers and donations and enthusiasm. And that's something that you can't fake, you can't manufacture, you can't buy. That is just what's happening organically because there's that much excitement surrounding this campaign. So they will continue to keep it up. They'll continue to hit each one of these states, and it's really it's bearing itself out in a big way. Again, I'm going to do a video on this shortly. So I believe this will be out tomorrow morning, but I'm going to do a deep dive into the polling. And the top line is that New York Times is showing in 3 key states. Let's see if I can pull that up on the screen right now. Let's see. And then we'll end with this. Here we go. Look at this polling. These are the 3 key swing states that Kamala Harris would need to reach 270 electoral votes: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. She is leading Donald Trump by 4 points in each of these states. So the difference between what Kamala Harris is doing and what Hillary Clinton did in 2016 is clear. They are investing not just in a strategy of mocking Donald Trump and hoping that everybody's just going to make sure not to show up for him, but making sure they invest in a ground game, making sure that they are opening up field offices in all of these states, and very clearly learning from the mistakes of the past. So, look, that doesn't mean that we become complacent. Far from it. We take all of this as just more rationale to dig in and do the work that we need to do. And that means that every single one of you watching, make sure that you're registered to vote, because Republicans love nothing more than to take people off the rolls, especially if you live in Democratic areas, that you're registered to vote, that you have a plan to vote, and that you find somebody in your circle of people who otherwise would not have voted, and you make them your responsibility. And I know everybody has somebody like that. We are not surrounded by people who are political freaks like us, who are paying attention to politics day in and day out. I have really close people to me, even in my family, who otherwise do not care about voting. I make them my responsibility, and I promise you, even despite how many people I reach on a daily basis on YouTube, it is the few people that I know I'm directly responsible for making them vote that has the biggest reward for me. And I know it'll feel the same way for you. So please find a few people and make them your responsibility, because that's a big deal heading into these elections, where the margins are going to be not millions, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of people in each state. And I'm talking about Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and maybe even states like Texas and Florida. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but everybody has a job to do here. I'm not asking everybody to do everything, but I'm asking everybody to do something. So make sure you have that plan, and make sure you're responsible for your circle of people. All right, everybody, we will leave it there. Again, please subscribe to this channel to check out the next live stream. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to everybody soon.